That kind of segues into a question I wanted to ask you about, and correct me if I'm wrong if I got these numbers wrong, but in the dot-com crash, you lost $70 million dollars, and then you took a company public for $1.3 billion dollars, of which you donated all of your shares to charity. Then you founded the Center for Compassion and Altruism Research and Education. It seems to me that something changed in your life during this period, and I was wondering if you could talk about that and how it seems you became really altruistic in this short span of time and what happened there.
Well, I would tell you, it's not as if I was not generous or altruistic before, but certainly I would think that if you look at somebody who's lost what I think all of us would consider huge sums of money, and in fact, I was effectively bankrupt, and then to um, essentially, while in that position, give away tens and tens of millions of dollars when one did not have to. Uh, that is an unusual action.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would tell you, even for people who I'd known for many years and people who I had spent a lot of time with discussing this, 100% of them said it was essentially stupid to do that. And why would anybody do that? And unless I had some absolute legal requirement and was forced to do it, none of them would do it at all. And there's certainly some validity to that. In fact, my wife, in an interview, when a reporter, because this became public, when a reporter asked her, she said, "Well, I don't mind him being generous. I just wish he hadn't given everything away." And that being said, look, what is my worst day? My worst day is I am a neurosurgeon. That profession pays 99.9% more than almost anyone in the world makes. It would, first of all, be an insult to everyone if somehow I made a statement that, geez, how horrible, I lost all this money, my life is ruined. That's ridiculous, and it's insulting. You know, losing every penny, I'm still uh, the luckiest person in the world. I have my health, I have my family, I'm paid huge sums comparatively to most of the people in the world, and in fact, most people in the United States. What is it that I could, with any authenticity, complain about? Absolutely nothing. Now, the one comment I will make, and which is a lesson learned, is that I grew up in poverty, and my family was on public assistance my entire life. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was an invalid. She suffered from depression, attempted suicide multiple times. That's not an ideal situation. Uh, but I was blessed to have had some individuals who demonstrated compassion to me and really changed how I viewed the world as a youngster. But one of the burdens I was still left with was I thought that the most important thing was control. Like I wanted to control everything. I want to control. I'm going to work really hard so I can control how much money I make. I want to control the profession I have. I want to control everything because that's going to give me happiness. And and when you're poor, you think that control translates into money. And in some ways, of course, we know that if you have significant sums of money, you do have a lot more freedom and opportunity than those who do not. And that is true. But that being said, uh, I found that for me, that I realized suddenly that it was driving certain types of behavior of mine. And it created in me this thinking that it was money that was most important because that gave me control. And if I had control, that made me happy because it decreased, or so I thought, the possibility of some untoward event or something I did not want to happen. Now, of course, if you have any degree of self-awareness or wisdom, you realize that the concept of control is a chimera. That being said, though, we still, many of us have a delusion, though, and it may even be on a subconscious level, that if we hold on to what we think is this view, it makes it the real thing. And the best thing that ever happened to me actually was losing all that money. And then with conscious intent to take that and throw this incredible amount of money, which I could argue was what I had strived to obtain, my entire life, to take it and throw it out there, what happens is suddenly you're liberated. That thing which you believed was the most important thing to your happiness, you have, with intentionality, thrown away, suddenly makes you realize it was meaningless to begin with. Now, I don't want to imply that I did not have a good time when I was extraordinarily wealthy. And again, I'm still better off than the vast majority of people. But I will have to tell you, giving all of that money away has had absolutely no effect on my level of happiness whatsoever. So it actually was a liberating experience.
Wow. Wow, that's great. That's, because so many people in America, especially, that's their dream, right? Is to make the millions, and then they think they'll be happy. And to hear from somebody who's been on both sides of that, in your childhood also, but also, to make it and lose it and then make it back. And that's just great. That's just valuable wisdom. Thank you.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, there was just an interview that I saw with an individual who was part of a group of lottery ticket buyers. They bought as a group, and he was, I think, one of 16. And I think their group of 16 walked away with $450 million, right?
Mm.
And the individual was saying his life is miserable. And it's not to say that, he hasn't bought things that he thought he needed, but it's completely disrupted so many of his interactions in the world. And we look at people who have suddenly been given the gift that they thought they wanted, and it has brought misery. And this has been repeated over and over and over again. And, it's an absolute truism. It is, be careful what you ask for.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you get it, actions can have untoward consequences. And the most important thing each of us can ask for is food, shelter, security, safety for our families. And fundamentally, once you have that, there's not a whole lot of increment in happiness by having more things. And in fact, frankly, one of the things I found is having less things makes me happier.
Wow. That's great advice.